Ya regresó de sus world travels. Dios mío, los perdí. Ok, ahí está. Awesome. Well, we are ready. Welcome everyone to today's virtual event. I am so excited about having this conversation around all things AI. It is my pleasure to introduce our panelists. Cynthia will be joining us a little bit later. So we will get started with Anthony Nuñez, CEO of INF-Care. Give us just a quick introduction.
Hi, thanks for the invitation to this event. At INF-Care, we're focused on transforming the aging experience and applying AI in a very ethical manner to really carry the workload today on understanding where problems lie, where they begin to exist, and delivering that data to humans so they can interact and interject into situations for older adults to be proactive on issues.
Fantastic. So you work with the aging population, which we will all be headed toward.
Yes.
And it is my personal pleasure to introduce my good friend and client, Luis Ibarra.
Hi, hey, thank you for the invite. I'm the CTO for PingWind Incorporated. We have a big footprint with the Veterans Affairs Office, but specifically our AI initiatives right now are more internal, more corporate, trying to figure out ways that we can automate our workflows to make things easier for us because we're growing pretty rapidly. So trying to leverage that technology to minimize, right? Help people do more with less. That's how we're trying to implement it right now.
Fantastic. Well, given your backgrounds, I'm really intrigued by seeing how you guys are using AI in your respective roles. So as we know, many companies and people are experimenting with AI. For some of you, you've been using AI for a while, but for most of us, it really hit the stage and kind of at a mass scale in November. So less than a year, we are all trying to figure out, how do we cut cost? How do we increase productivity? How do we incorporate it into our day-to-day processes? And how do we just improve our business operations? But with that, a lot of people are also kind of wary of security issues, copyright risks, ethics, and some unintended biases that are baked into AI. So for you guys, what are you most excited about AI? Let's start with Anthony.
What excites me most about AI is how you can apply it in specific industries to really optimize workflows, to really help reduce costs. In our specific industry, labor costs have really exploded, and it's impacting the end user, the consumer, the older adult, in a negative way. They're reducing the amount of time that they're engaging home care. They are, in some cases, getting reactive attention when they are in a group home setting. And there's a lack of understanding of their needs overall on a daily basis and how those needs change. And so what excites me the most for our market is being able to help transform this market into the next level in a way that still leverages humans, but allows technology such as AI, generative AI, to really help elevate the level of care that we provide to older adults, whether that's in the home or whether that's in a group home setting.
Great. Well, let me just pause with Anthony for a second there. Yeah. You said two things, and one of them is using humans and AI, like playing nice together. Some people, part of the reservation with AI is that they think that AI is going to take over humanity. And this is obviously dramatized and probably hyper exaggerated. But What would you say to people who have that kind of reservation?
Well, I think every industry is different, right? AI needs data. It needs data to be able to create reactions, to create answers. Uh, and so I think what we're going to see is people are going to be more mindful of their data, their own personal data, their privacy. In our specific industry, privacy is absolutely paramount with older adults, and it's something that we've recognized from day one. And so in our, application of AI, we focus heavily on the privacy. We do that upfront with, how we gather the data and how we interact with the end user, the older adult. And then by keeping humans in the loop, it's not that we're eliminating humans from this industry. It's the fact that there aren't simply enough humans in our industry to service all the older adults, the exploding population of older adults that's taking place. And so we absolutely in this industry need to apply technology to be able to survive and to be able to continue to service the growing, need of older adults to remain independent. So I think, I would say for people that maybe are skeptical or a little concerned about the application of AI, I would say it depends on the industry, but I'm confident that industry leaders such as ourselves and Luis and others in different industries will look to apply it in a very ethical manner and do so in a very focused way that it will serve the needs of those who are the consumer, who are the end user of it.
Great. So, Luis, can you weigh in on that?
Well, AI is many things, right? It's not just one. And me being a big nerd, like I see it using AI to help people do other things. Like it could be used for imaging, right? Helping make images better. It could be used for helping you write something a little bit better that maybe you're not so good at writing an eloquent email. So maybe you could use it to help you, do something a little more professional. There's so many uses for it. It's a lot of it. There is that data element, right? So we all as companies want to figure out can we use AI to help us with our data and use it better. But there's also that other element. How can we use AI to help us do our jobs better? How can we use it, for example, for doing our like one thing is our training. A lot of times when we do training, internal company training, it's someone doing a presentation and possibly even recording themselves talking through it. Well, now with AI, you can do some really cool imaging stuff with voiceover and, maybe an avatar that looks very professional, very elegant and eloquent. And so, and it takes maybe half an hour to do something like that. Right. So there's a lot of different uses with AI. It just depends on where, like Anthony would say, where in the industry, in the marketplace you are for it. But don't be afraid of it. Is, how do you leverage AI for you to do your job a little better? If you take that approach, then, AI needs you right now. AI needs people. It doesn't, you need to either enter a prompt or you need to use it to do things better. It's really not running on its own right now. Maybe, like you said, it's an exaggeration. It will take over the world. But right now, why not take the best of both worlds and just use it for your job to make it easier?
On the other side of the argument, people say that technology is not going to replace us. All it's going to do is evolve us or improve our lives. So there are some positives and pros and cons to every new technology that is being introduced. You also mentioned that it was going to help make our jobs easier. Well, I did read an estimate that showed that by 2030, which is not very far away, guys, it's 7 years from now, that 65% of our jobs would have changed on average. So yeah. AI will force us to redefine our jobs, our tasks. Where do you guys see that specific change happening in your respective industries?
You want to go for it, Anthony?
Sure. In our industry, I think it's going to, transform how we actually interact with the older adult. today, our industry is very heavily reactive by nature because we're unable to, obtain information in real time and make decisions accordingly. So we're always chasing issues in home care and senior living, and really just in aging in overall, we're chasing issues. We need to stay ahead of those issues. And from a cost perspective, that benefits everyone. It benefits the consumer, the older adult, benefits the family. It benefits payers that, are shelling out money for emergency room visits that are completely avoidable. So, this industry has operated, in a format for the last 100 years in the same way. And you're absolutely right, but it's time to really evolve that. And in the next 7 years, a lot's going to happen. Older adults are going to want more. They're going to want a more proactive experience, and we're going to need technology to be able to deliver that. And it's going to have to be developed by organizations that, have their mind focused on the future, but also focused on addressing the concerns up front of older adults and keeping that in mind.
In a small way, AI reminds me of when Uber was introduced and people are like, what the heck is this thing? And then can you see yourselves taking a traditional taxi cab nowadays? Sometimes. It just feels really, really odd. And I don't even know if there are taxi cabs in DC, honestly, because I just don't pay attention to them anymore. So I feel like AI in a very small way is that kind of thing. Like we won't even recognize what we used to do and how we used to do things 5, 6, 7, 10 years down the road. So I find that like somewhat apprehensively exciting to try to imagine what that future is like. Luis, we've talked a little bit about the future of AI and how, who knows, right? There are predictions, there's some estimates, there are some forecasting, but truly, what could we expect from AI and the impact it will have on our industries?
Well, like for me specifically, like let's think about the supply chain industry, right? There's a lot of robotics where it's doing a lot of jobs, keeping people safer, like in a manufacturing arena, you have people that are doing dangerous jobs that are now can be done automated with robots, right? So there's also a safety element that AI is providing in the workforce with certain labor categories, right? Not all of them. But as you can see in the future, I'm actually pretty excited about seeing the autonomous car, right? I want to see that thing drive itself and get an Uber come pick you up and sit in the back and it just takes you, And so I'm looking forward to that one.
You are excited about no drivers?
Yeah, I think that would be cool.
I mean, in a way, they won't be distracted, right?
How many times you sit in an Uber and you're like, and the Uber guy really nice, right? They want to talk to you and talk, and
you're like, keep your eyes on the road.
Like, I just need to get somewhere right now. Help me out.
Right. I know there's some logistics that need to be figured out, to avoid accidents and stuff like that. But we're very close. We're very close to that.
I'm pretty excited about that particular one. Like I don't know about you, Anthony, but I think it'd be cool to actually try it, sit down and let it take you somewhere. The thought of it is pretty cool.
I mean, I've always dreamt of jumping in some car, train, and just literally saying, I'm going this place, and it'll just like drop me off over there. Like beam me up, Scotty kind of stuff. It's like, oh, I'm there.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
So obviously that there's like a lot of potential for AI that we have, I think, just scratched the surface, right? From quantum computing to just healthcare, robotics, all sorts of different things. But with those inventions, those innovations come some challenges and maybe some privacy and ethical issues. How would you guys envision striking the balance between, the benefits of AI, the power of AI, and then also kind of that individual privacy rights or just that ethical aspects of how do we deal with artificial intelligence?
You know, there's always going to be bad actors out there. There's just nothing you're going to be, I mean, they're always going to be around. So all you can do, it depends on what side you're on, right? There's some people that find it fun to figure out how to use good things to do bad things. It's just, you know, like Anthony was referring to the word ethical, right? Ethical. It's, we all as individuals or as corporations, or, you know, we all have to figure out how do we want to use it for a positive way. But everyone has a different agenda. So it's kind of a hard thing to answer, because it's, no matter what, even when quantum computing comes out and it's more mainstream, they're going to use it for bad ways, right? How to hack encryption keys, you know? And so we have to stay ahead of that and figure out ways, you know, how do we keep making that math harder so that these quantum computers don't solve those mathematical problems way quicker and stay secure, right, with these keys. So.
And I think, I mean, in your particular industry, right, cybersecurity, I mean, hackers are using good stuff for bad,
right,
you know, for bad stuff.
Right. Yeah. And right now, like, you know, you have things, and there are a lot of other AI tools that even write code for you, right? And so you could tell it to write you a malicious, you know, a virus or a bot that's going to web crawl and get content. You know, that's happening already right now with getting spams with emails of these bots that just go find you on LinkedIn, or especially if you are a public facing, you know, executive that has your picture on a particular website because, you know, a CEO, whatever, the C-levels, you know, how they like to put all that stuff. You're a big target because they find you, you know. So, and it's,
yeah, again, it's like, do you hide from it, or do you figure out a way to minimize the risks while still taking advantage of the benefits, right?
I think it's just all of us collectively in our particular industries getting together and figuring out ways to, you know, try and stay ahead. That's all we can do. You know, I find my peers, my equals that we have, you know, we're trying to do cyber protect. So it's good to have these work groups or, you know, things where you guys meet or conferences and really talk about these issues and figure out creative ways to try and fix it and collaborate. That's about all we can do.
With going back to the job creation or job elimination, depends on what coin, you know, what side of the coin you're on. AI will probably change the way we do more than half of our jobs, but it'll also create new jobs. It'll create new opportunities, whether it's an AI specialist or some sort of thing that you would need to be an expert at how to use AI. Do you guys see anything specific in your industries around job creation, not just job elimination?
I have. It's increased the amount of data scientists that I need to help with those algorithms and the data analysis and how to, you know, write all those algorithms. So for me, immediately it has changed that I have a bigger need for more math people.
Wow, that's like music to my ears, because I'm like, math. and as far as like talent development, Cinthia is the director of talent management at talent outreach at Google. And it is such a pleasure to have you join us on this call. We're talking about what kind of skills or jobs will AI demand, not just from a job elimination, but a job creation. And so what kinds of things can people do to prepare for that future with AI? And Cinthia, feel free to chime in on that question.
Yes, I would love to. And I had a chance to hear the answer previously. I am incredibly excited. And I do believe that actually like more than half of the roles that we'll need 10 years from now don't exist today. And that like every single role will be reimagined by how AI can come to this. I lead talent outreach for Google, which means my team oversees all of our connections with colleges and universities. So definitely insatiable need for PhDs, but PhDs take so long, right? Like there's literally like Google knows exactly how many PhDs are, enrolled and in watch programs. And like, we would love to have as many of them as possible, but there's only so many that are currently there. So we're trying to reimagine, how do you reskill talent? Colleges and universities will play a key role in how to reskill, upskill, create the right majors, but we need to be partners in terms of shaping that as well. But not only do we oversee college and universities, but also any partnerships in the kind of professional and executive space, and ultimately get folks excited about working for Google. But one of the things is like every role is being reimagined, and a lot of that talent, like if I think about like how we do recruiting, like how algorithm can, if I create a new requisition, right, and I say I need somebody who ideally has an MBA and has 5 years of experience in product management and lives in these geographical areas, like AI could generate like a list of that talent for me, or like if we have the right data, like it's going to reimagine everything. So I actually think most of the roles we'll need 10 years from now don't exist today.
Yeah, and Cinthia, when we say, and I agree wholeheartedly that we are going to reimagine how we work and live and play, honestly. But are there any specific skills? Luis mentioned math, which is music to my ears because I love math. But also, like, are there specific skills that people should kind of lean into as this evolves?
Yeah, I think my biggest overall advice would be like just remain incredibly intellectually curious about everything that's happening in this space. Like, I'm a Latina in tech, but I'm in HR, right? Like, I'm at Google, but what I do is not AI related. But I need to be aware about how that field is going to be impacted by this and how I need to change. So it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm going to go out and get a degree in computer science, right? Or go get a PhD in machine learning. But I should be incredibly curious and staying on top of what is currently happening at the White House in terms of AI and ethics, and the companies that are working and meeting this week around that. Like, what is happening in the talent market in terms of the competition for talent and where is it exactly? Like, I think it's stay curious for how it's happening in your area, because every area will be disrupted. But I do think, like, if you were to ask me today, I do not have any like enough PhDs to go around. Like, they're in the hundreds, right? Like, and we as an industry are asking for like tens of thousands of these folks in these fields, and there's just not that many.
Well, in Anthony's field, healthcare, we're hearing that there is a doctor shortage, right? That there's a nurse shortage. How do you think AI will try to solve that huge staffing challenge?
It'll definitely bridge the gap. It'll bridge the gap between the ratio of patients or clients to doctors or nurses or to caregivers. It'll help those caregivers that are now managing 2 dozen, 3 dozen older adults be able to manage them much more effectively with less stress on them, right? We know during the pandemic that many of those positions were stressed, overworked. They're doing a lot of different things, and they're doing a lot of ancillary things that they don't necessarily like, right? You sign up in our industry, you sign up to be a caregiver because you care, about people. You are compassionate about their overall wellness. But then there's a lot of other things you have to do as a caregiver to really execute on that. What we want to do in our industry, and what we are doing, is applying it so that we can do all those things that are very time consuming, tedious, upfront for the humans, so that human caregiver can now do their job better. So, in our industry, it's not about eliminating roles, because, that just doesn't apply for us. We just don't have enough, humans in our industry to be able to service that surging population I mentioned. So it's much different. And from a kind of job perspective, overall, I think one of the things that are going to be very important is human to human interaction, right? I think we've lost that over the last few years, because now we're texting more, and we're doing a lot of other things that aren't face to face, human to human interaction. Well, AI can't necessarily do that. AI can take data and produce an answer, but it can't do a lot of the things that us humans do. And so I think there will be roles that won't be technical at all. It'll be, can you interact with another human to be able to help us to figure out how to mine data from this particular set of humans? Can you interact with humans to, execute on these job functions with the data set that AI delivers? So, I agree with Cinthia that, a lot of the jobs that will come forward are going to be very different from what we imagine it to be.
Anthony, you said something where there are things that only humans can do. There are things that we need, and it is that human to human interaction. And even when AI or robots become human-like they could look like us, we still are going to need humans for multiple things. So I think that may be a little bit reassuring for those who are apprehensive or fearful of how AI's role is going to take over our lives, that we will still need humans for very specific functions and tasks and creativity that AI can't have or doesn't have yet.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I worked in robotics, and I have a background there. It's, you can't replace a human. I mean, ultimately robotics, AI, it requires a human to kind of program, the algorithms. But just like an autonomous car, which I also happen to work in that industry previously, you can't teach every single situation that exists out there. I've been driving for a very long time, and even, this week, last week, I've encountered situations that I've never encountered. And so how do you, program for things like that? And that's why I think that if people are afraid of AI, the best thing they can do is really focus on that human to human interaction skill, right? That's a skill set, the eye contact, the gestures that we understand, that the different dynamic situations that we put ourselves in when we interact with other humans. You can try to program that, but ultimately you're not going to get every situation, and things will fall through the cracks. And that's where humans are really going to be needed, in my mind.
That's interesting. Part of Len's mission is to elevate the Latino community through events, through things that kind of require that face-to-face connection that is irreplaceable, at least for now. We can do some of these Zoom virtual events, but at the end of the day, there's nothing like looking at somebody in person, eyeball to eyeball, and really connecting with them in real life versus virtual.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit earlier about self-driving cars. Do you see machines, maybe even planes, going in that same vein of, self-driving or remotely controlled?
Yeah. I even when I was in the Coast Guard, I even way back when they already had a helicopter that they could tell it to take off and go land somewhere else, so they didn't have to have a pilot, especially like if they didn't have a pilot to bring the helicopter somewhere where it was needed, they could have it go fly itself somewhere to a pilot that then can go take it for a rescue mission. So
I guess like drones, right? Those are, in a way.
Drones and so that's already, it's just perfecting it, right? Like Anthony was saying, there's all these scenarios that it still needs to learn and how to handle a scenario that it doesn't know about. So it's just working its kinks out, but I think it'll happen in our lifetime, Anthony. We're going to be sitting in that car and it's going to drive somewhere.
I think we're going to have to recreate roads in order for that to be possible. I mean, when you go into the air, we have more control there. We can know where airspace is. It is crowded, but I think for helicopters, like you mentioned, if we know what's going on in the airspace, it's not crowded. We can get it to point A to point B. Water, we have a little bit more control, but the roads, in my mind, are going to have to be redesigned.
I think it'll start in in pockets, right? I think it'll
like closed communities, something that's very controlled, like a Dubai kind of situation where they're making like these, specific cities that have a lot of technology driven pieces to it.
Yeah, I think it'll be controlled, and it'll be like very specific scenarios where it's available until, it goes mainstream.
one of the, I guess, criticisms has been how AI may start to delay learning for college students in particular, because they're cheating or they are taking shortcuts with AI. What do you guys have to say about that kind of, I guess, pushback on, oh, well, AI is just going to make us more lazy, or that we're not going to exercise our brains because we just have the crutch of AI doing the work for us? Cinthia?
It's interesting. I tend to be like a glass half full and like an eternal optimist. So I don't like to think of it like there's just things that like the power of processing data, that the capability that we have that like no human can do, right? Like I think it's going to allow us to think differently about what is possible. I don't like, as of today, I don't envy colleges, universities, right? Like, and teachers, but it's interesting. I have 3 kids in school. And one of the things we needed to do is like, the professor asked them to like take a selfie with the parent as the parent was signing something, because it was like, there's like so many other ways that now like everything was already being submitted in Google Classroom, right? Like, so electronic signatures could have changed that. Like, I think we're going to have to evolve, and maybe like the next couple of years are going to be tough for teachers and folks, but I'm actually super hopeful that we'll unleash things that we can't even imagine or weren't even possible before. But it's
like that you said that the data processing, like there is no human mind that can process it that fast, kind of like, the endless moves of a chess game. Like the computer's going to be able to see every single angle,
and all the
no matter
combinations,
how much that chess master or grandmaster knows. So when it comes to computing and processing, it needs data, right? Like it can't compute nothing. It needs input in order to quickly go through all of that. But then where does the human fit into that?
Yeah.
Like, so what do we do with that advanced and super fast type of data processing?
Exactly.
What does that
That's what we were saying, right? Like it's artificial intelligence, like the human who will always have to be behind the power of it. I trust that will like unleash us in a whole other level.
Luis, did you have anything there about colleges or education or how people are prepping for the real world?
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, there's always bad actors, right? And there's going to be a lot of kids that take advantage of it for good reasons and come out smarter. And there's going to be a lot of them that are just going to take advantage of it and learn nothing, right? And it'll be everybody else's fault when they don't have a job. It'll be AI's fault. It's going to happen. I mean, it's just teaching these days more about teaching the kids to be more flexible and dynamic, to be able to shift with whatever's happening. It's not very structured anymore. So
let's get a little bit more practical just for our audience. Most of them are not in advanced technology necessarily, whether it's in healthcare or cybersecurity or even at Google. Are there some practical things that our audience can learn from, like maybe a specific tool that you guys recommend, or a specific way that AI is helping you personally do your job better? I just wanted to give them some takeaways or some, practical applications of AI in our individual roles, not from a company perspective, but from an individual work flow.
I can take that to start. I think people should definitely be more open to, engaging the online platforms that are available right now. There are multiple ones out there. Obviously, ChatGPT is one. There's other ones, available like Jasper and others. Engage them and try implementing, it within your daily activities. So, as Luis mentioned very early on in this, writing an email. But if you're going to write an email to someone, type in, what you want to do. And what you'll see is, based on what you put in, it'll determine what you get out as a response. So the more detail you give it, the more data you give it, the better response you'll get. But if you get a very vague, data, you won't get that high end of a, answer and output. So I would say be more open to engaging those online platforms to become familiar with it, see its limitations, because sometimes it doesn't always give you the right answer. I mean, it tells you right up front on ChatGPT that, you can only, you can't get data from the last year, right? It's, it's only up to a certain point. They haven't input data beyond that. So, understand its limitations. And I think that'll help, people be a little less afraid of it, because then they'll start to see opportunities as to where they can fit in their life and where their skill set could be complemented, with that tool.
If I'm hearing you right, it's kind of like that song that says it's all about the base. So it's all about the prompts, because it depends on what you're putting into it, that it's going to give you something back. I did hear that if you're nice to it, like you say please and thank you, and you address it almost like a human, that it gives you better output. Have you guys had that experience?
No, I'm always nice, so
You're never rude to ChatGPT. And then the second one that I heard was also that use or think of AI as a really smart intern, but at the same time, it's like it's learning. So it's learning from what you give it. It's not going to automatically understand your brand voice, or it's not automatically going to understand the tone of this thing, or the application of what you're asking it to do for you. Would you agree with that, Cinthia, that it's almost like a really intelligent intern that you're training?
I think it could be. And, as Anthony was saying, like trying to leverage it in as many ways as you can. And I'll keep saying, like, be super curious. One of the things I'm excited about, is, Google has Bard, and it is like a search engine, and integrating Bard with search, and how like the possibilities there of like even smarter searches, right, could be important. But where I get even more excited about AI for Google is integrating it into all of our workspace, right? Of like, if you're in slides, if you're in sheets, if you're in docs, right? Like putting a presentation together in slides with AI is pretty awesome. And like some of the things that are in the horizon of the possibilities of like, you could be listening into a meeting, summarize the notes. And if you say create like a 3-page slide deck on what was just discussed, like that would be possible in the not distant future. When you think about sheets, like you could do, and this was all shared in IO, kind of like Google talking about its products, but you could say, hey, I'm thinking about comparing colleges and universities for my daughter. Can you create a sheet that will allow me to compare colleges based on A, B, and C? And it'll like actually create the columns. And if you say in the Northeast, it'll pre-populate the colleges and like tell you where they are, like what sizes of college, and it'll immediately pull that information, but package it in a way that you don't need to do the search and then create the spreadsheet and sort it. Like it'll do that for you. And then you'll still have to manipulate it. Right. But it is like a lot of upfront work can be done for you.
That's
so it's kind of like enhancing the productivity of certain things. Would be really exciting. And I get super excited about AI in workspace and how it'll completely transform how, if you think about it, right, like even being in one document all at once felt like impossible, right? Like of 10 people being in the same document just a few years ago. In the not too far distant future, a person doesn't need to create that document. Like it can just be a summary of a meeting, and then you can edit it as needed.
That's amazing. And that just gave me an idea of like after each client meeting that we have, summarizing what we just talked about and then sending those notes to the client.
Be able to say,
in a deck or in some sort of thing.
Yeah,
that would be huge. Like you don't need a note taker. AI can be the note taker. There was another kind of fun example about meal planning that you can use AI to say, here are my dietary restrictions, or here is the types of foods that I like. Create a meal plan that is good for my family, or good for adults, or good for this, or good for that. And even creates the grocery list that you need in order to create those meals. Another usage that I also heard was on, I am not a gardener, at all. You do not want to give me a plant. I will kill it because I just don't know how to use it or how to take care of it. But you can create a plan with AI on how to take care of your plants, reminders, weekly things that you need to do to keep your plants alive, the types of soil or climate that you're in. AI will calculate that and say, oh, you're in a dry climate, you're in a humid climate, and just adjust, creating these plans for you so that you don't kill your plants. So I'm actually going to be applying that to my own life. But these are just like really small, kind of annoying things that we have to figure out. But AI is helping alleviate some of that. Is there an example, Luis, that you've used recently or your team has used recently that is alleviating some of that frustration and compressing time?
Sure, especially with workflow automations. I mean, one of my pet peeves is how much email traffic goes through for approvals or with attachments with documents that can be automatically generated for us. And spreadsheets, the amount of spreadsheets that we have to track things, so we have actually been using a lot of the past SaaS platforms and using the AI piece for automation workflow and having all those approvals process automated. So now that the emails that you get, it's about, hey, look at this, do you approve or reject, and it keeps, we no longer have these emails that are going around and waiting, because you get drowned in emails and somebody's waiting for you to respond. And sometimes some things fall through the cracks. So that's definitely a low-hanging fruit that we have used AI to help leverage and make our business better.
Luis, could you either spell it out? What was that tool that is helping you with that email and approval process?
Well, it's a platform that you use. Microsoft Automate is one of them.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch. Salesforce makes a SaaS PaaS platform, low-code, no-code type workflow automation. There's a whole bunch. It just depends on what works for you.
Okay.
We're using various to fill in the gaps. It's not just one single solution, but that's what we have been using it more recently for, is to kind of help us get more efficient on our workflows and avoid all this email traffic and all this insane amount of spreadsheets that keep being sent as attachments. So.
No, I love that. I mean, if we can free ourselves from email overload, that, and I know that you, Google, right, has a great Gmail platform there, but it's just like we are bombarded by sheer volume of emails, and just being able to sort through that and be more efficient. I mean, I can't imagine how many hours of productivity that will save. So that'd be great.
On email itself, there's some new technology that will be able to like summarize a full conversation. They will just be able to say, like, how exchanges of like sometimes people reply and just say like summarize what happened. It'll be able to tell you. Kind
of like the Cliff Notes or the TLDR, too long.
The TLDR, exactly.
That would be awesome. It should just be called that tool.
Funny thing is, it'll also be able to tell you, Anthony, to your example, if you just say, I want to write an email to my team saying these 3 things, then it'll expand it as long as you want, but then it also consolidate 10 conversations into 3 sentences. So it'll be.
I know that even applying for jobs has also, like, now they're automating that, and people are applying for jobs in a very pragmatic way, using some sort of AI assistance to apply for jobs. So I know that it's been used on the other side to filter and look at candidates, right, in a more efficient way. But then on the flip side, the actual job applicant using AI to their advantage to be able to apply for more jobs more quickly, just on the other end. So we want to now switch over to some of the possible dangers, risks, cautions that you guys could touch on regarding AI. So it's not all happy and rainbows, that there are, as Luis has said multiple times in our conversation today, that they're going to be bad actors. But if there are some things that we should just be aware of when using AI, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I can start. The one thing I would say is be more aware of your data footprint. I think, last, 10 years, maybe, as kind of social media has evolved, maybe even going back a little farther than that. As it's evolved, we've become much more comfortable sharing so many things. Well, that's data. That's data that can be mined. That's data that can be used for, adverse things, as you're mentioning. And so I think what we definitely need to suggest to people is to be more mindful of your data footprint, what data you're putting out there, what you're sharing, how you're sharing it. And in situations when you're interacting with third parties, make sure it's very clear how your data will be protected or utilized. And I think if you do that and understand that clearly up front, then you will be in a much safer position for the long term.
Yeah.
Really quick, in that vein of like data mining and having your information out there, I have also read about using AI to mimic your voice or pass as someone else, so that they have access to your information, and how families should have like a code or a code word or something to almost verify, are you the person that you're saying that you are? Are there other types of examples that people should just be aware of, Cinthia, from a privacy or from a risk aspect of AI, where people are using it for malicious intent?
I think, like Anthony's point was a very good one. I think right now there's just, where I'm saying, let's stay on top of everything that's happening and the ethics and how it's going to get regulated. Because I think, sometimes what we lack is imagination, of just like we lack imagination of what is going to be possible. I think we also lack imagination of how it could be used on the flip side. And yes, whatever, I'm like, yes, the digital footprint is going to be incredibly important. But yes, let's just stay super
Vigilant.
Vigilant. That's the right word, vigilant on that, because it could be, the scale of reach, right, of what you can do when you think about some of these platforms with the wrong information is quite scary and truly world disrupting, if in the wrong hands.
Right. Even from countries to countries, right? When something fake could be introduced to another country.
Exactly. And the ability to create, I get super scared on the generated pictures, right? If I could make up a picture that shows whatever I want, right? And I'm from Honduras originally, and in certain countries, right, with a certain level of education of your population, they're
not going to be able to tell the difference, right? Was this real? Was this manufactured?
How do you confirm and this information? And as much as all of these other companies are trying to fight misinformation, how quickly can you do it, and how on top can you be? And some of those things are really, really scary. Yeah. Like social political disruption is probably the thing that
the massive scale, kind of starting wars and stuff, and
just if somebody with the right imagination.
Right. Luis?
That's a hard one. Anthony and Cinthia already, brought up the bigger points, right? The most common ones, the obvious ones. But I think maybe out of all this, in the next few years, a new platform will come to fruition that will help you some kind of protection against some of these things. I don't know.
I guess it's kind of like the chess game in cybersecurity, where, okay, you're going to put up a defense, and then a hacker or a cyber criminal will figure out how to do that one, and then you put a bigger mousetrap, or you do this other thing, and you're just kind of constantly trying to figure out a way to protect your assets or to protect your data.
Right. Well, the big thing is what are you afraid of, and then make sure you stay on top of it in the industry. right? So for us, it's about cyber, right? So I try as much as I can to read and stay ahead and to figure out what's going on and do what we can, but it's just about whatever you're afraid of, go research it and go stay ahead of the game as much as you can. You're not going to be able to do much just sitting there hoping, bad people are out there.
Right.
People.
So this dovetails into another question that is about misinformation, particularly, hey, the elections are coming. And we had a question posed by our audience. Thank you, Maria, for submitting that. Is how is Google preparing for the elections on this issue in terms of disinformation?
That is incredibly top of mind and across the world, right? Like when the war in Ukraine, broke out last year, like Google stayed operating in Russia with the sole purpose of fighting misinformation, because somebody had to be it's such a controlled media space. So you'd be surprised in the amount of power, not only computing power, but human power that is going behind how to think of fighting this globally. Not only here locally, but it's not only when it comes to politics, it's also there's a whole team focused on this when it as it relates to health, for example, making sure that when you Google health related information, that it is actually legitimate answers that you're getting, right? So I think it is with great power comes great responsibility, and something that is absolutely top of mind globally, and it issues way beyond politics as well.
Yeah, it's how do you control that when it's also a free-for-all, right? Anybody can post stuff online, they can post on social media. Who are the gatekeepers? And there's always a bias, a baked-in bias. We all have biases, and how do you control that? So I think that's a very complex issue.
Yeah, and algorithms and YouTube and TikTok, right, are meant to be what are you searching for? And let me pull up the next thing. And that is also a really big, how do I make sure that you're pulling up the right and legitimate things?
It's tough. It's a moving target. So it's hard to keep up with it. You just got to try your best. It's going to be even worse when politicians fight politicians, right? And they put stuff out there. It's going to get very ugly in that area too.
Yeah. And then a big mix of human emotions, right? And the triggers and all of that, it'll just augment the fights that ensue. So as we wrap up our conversation today, are there any topics or things that we didn't discuss thus far that you wanted to share with our audience about the future of AI, or just the present of AI?
No, I think just more so, don't be too scared of it. Don't be too standoffish about it. Figure out ways that you can leverage it for yourself, to advance yourself and get smarter on it.
It's kind of like when the internet first came, or email marketing, or just email in general first was introduced, and people are like, what is this thing? Or even social media, what is this thing? And what you guys are saying is lean into it, be curious.
Yep.
And that would be the main thing I would say as well, of it is here to stay. And I will continue to say it will disrupt every single industry. So in whatever industry you are, embrace it. Begin thinking about how can I leverage it in the smaller things to the bigger things. Just think about when the iPhone came out, right? And even when the iPhone came out, you would have never thought that you would get a quote for a mortgage on your phone, right? Or fully purchase a car on your phone, right? So not only did cool phone get developed, but all of these mobile applications, and now most folks prefer to do it in mobile than in a computer, right? But big transactions.
We'll get mad if it isn't available on our phones.
You Venmo people, you just transactions that you would have I talk to my family, and Apple Pay or Google Pay, right? Are still scary to what do you mean I tap my phone? Or and I'm yes, you can tap your phone and it is safe. It's okay. But it is so different. And I think it's just let's just keep thinking about it's here to stay. It will disrupt. Take it by the horns and feel a little bit.
Take it by the horns. I like that. So I would just want to thank you guys for your time. You guys are at the forefront of what is happening in technology, in healthcare, and in AI as a whole. We do believe, and I personally, that AI does have the ability to make all of our lives better, faster, maybe even cheaper, but that we approach it with eyes wide open, with caution, and just being super vigilant about what that means for our data, privacy, and ethics. We are delighted that you guys got to share your insights and your personal vantage points, because all of you are in different industries, and how AI is impacting our lives. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, it was a pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Yes, enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.